Hi, I'm Alex Fulton and I'm a librarian at Cochise College Libraries, and I'm going to read today from The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which was a book of short stories written based on his experiences as a soldier during the Vietnam War. It has been challenged numerous times for profanity. And I'll be reading a section titled Ambush. When she was 9, my daughter Kathleen asked if I had ever killed anyone. She knew about the war. She knew I'd been a soldier. "You keep writing these war stories," she said, "so I guess you must have killed somebody." It was a difficult moment, but I did what seemed right, which was to say, of course not, and then to take her into my lap and hold her for a while. Someday, I hope she'll ask again, but here I want to pretend she's a grown-up. I want to tell her exactly what happened, or what I remember happening, and then I want to say to her that as a little girl, she was absolutely right. This is why I keep writing war stories. He was a short, slender young man of about 20. I was afraid of him, afraid of something, and he passed me on the trail. I threw a grenade that exploded at his feet and killed him. Or to go back. Shortly after midnight, we moved into the ambush site, outside my key. The whole platoon was there, spread out in the dense brush along the trail, and for 5 hours, nothing at all happened. We were working in 2-man teams, one man on guard while the other slept, switching off every 2 hours. And I remember it was still dark when Kiowa shook me awake for the final watch. The night was foggy and hot. For the first few moments, I felt lost and not sure about directions, groping for my grenade, helmet, and weapon. I reached out and found 3 grenades and lined them up in front of me, the pins already been straightened for quick throwing. And then for maybe half an hour, I kneeled there and waited. Very gradually, in tiny slivers, dawn began to break through the fog, and from my position in the brush, I could see 10 or 15 meters up the trail. The mosquitoes were fierce. I remember slapping at them, wondering if I should wake up Kiowa and ask for some repellent, then thinking it was a bad idea, then looking up and seeing the young man come out of the fog. He wore black clothing and rubber sandals and a gray ammunition belt. His shoulders were slightly stooped, his head cocked to the side as if listening for something. He seemed at ease. He carried his weapon in one hand, muzzle down, moving without any hurry up the center of the trail. There was no sound at all, none that I can remember. In a way, it seemed he was part of the morning fog, or my own imagination. But there was also the reality of what was happening in my stomach. I had already pulled the pin on the grenade. I came up to the crouch. It was entirely automatic. I did not hate the young man. I did not see him as the enemy. I did not ponder issues of morality, or politics, or military duty. I crouched and kept my head low. I tried to swallow whatever was rising from my stomach, which tasted like lemonade, something fruity and sour. I was terrified. There were no thoughts of killing. The grenade was to make him go away, just evaporate, and I leaned back and felt my mind go empty, and then felt it fill up again. I had already thrown the grenade before telling myself to throw it. The brush was thick, and I had to lob it high, not aiming, and I remember the grenade seeming to freeze above me for an instant, as if a camera had clicked. And I remember ducking down and holding my breath and seeing little wisps of fog rise from the earth. The grenade bounced once and rolled across the trail. I did not hear it, but there must have been sound, because the young man dropped his weapon and began to run, just 2 or 3 quick steps. Then he hesitated, swiveling to his right, and he glanced down at the grenade and tried to cover his head, but never did. It occurred to me that he was about to die. I wanted to warn him. The grenade made a popping sound, not soft, but not loud either. Not what I'd expected, and there was a puff of dust and smoke, a small white puff, and the young man seemed to jerk upward as if pulled by invisible wires. He fell on his back. His rubber sandals had been blown off. There was no wind. He lay at the center of the trail, his right leg bent beneath him, his one eye shut, his other eye a huge, harsh, star-shaped hole. It was not a matter of live or die. There was no real peril. Almost certainly the young man would have passed by, and it will always be that way. Later, I remember Kiowa tried to tell me that the man would have died anyway. He told me that it was a good kill, that I was a soldier and this was a war, and that I should shape up and stop staring and ask myself what the dead man would have done if things were reversed. None of it mattered. The words seemed far too complicated. All I could do was gape at the fact of the young man's body. Even now I haven't finished sorting it out. Sometimes I forgive myself. Other times I don't. In the ordinary hours of life, I try not to dwell on it, but now and then, when I'm reading a newspaper or just sitting alone in a room, I'll look up and see the young man coming out of the morning fog. I'll watch him walk toward me, his shoulders slightly stooped, his head cocked to the side, and he'll pass within a few yards of me and suddenly smile at some secret thought, and then continue up the trail to where it bends back into the fog.